A simple woman kicked out of car dealership. Next day, her billionaire husband's Rolls-Royce arrives. What happens when a car salesman rudely dismisses a woman in simple clothes, only to have her return the next day with her billionaire husband and a Rolls-Royce? You might think it's just a story about prejudice, but the shocking twist reveals why the dealership really wanted customers like her gone, and it involves far more than just bad attitude. Like, subscribe, and listen now to uncover the full story of corruption and revenge. The heavy glass door of Prestige Motors slammed shut behind her, the thud echoing the finality of the salesman's sneering dismissal. Celeste Monroe stood on the sweltering Miami sidewalk, the humid air thick with the scent of expensive leather and exhaust fumes from the luxury cars gleaming just feet away behind impenetrable glass. Her hand, instinctively clutching her simple canvas tote bag, trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a profound, vibrating anger mixed with deep humiliation. Just moments ago, that hand had rested lightly on the cool metal flank of a pearl-white SUV, envisioning it filled with children's laughter. Now, it felt tainted by the memory of the security guard's firm grip on her arm, pulling her away as if she were contaminated. Victor Langley, the salesman, his face a mask of smug superiority in his overly shiny suit, was still visible through the window, laughing with another customer, gesturing dismissively towards the door where she now stood. His words, sharp and cruel, ricocheted in her mind. "This isn't a photo op, sweetheart. People like you can't afford the floor mats. Security? Get her out. We don't allow vagrants loitering." The casual venom, the instant judgment based solely on her simple jeans and t-shirt, the utter refusal to even entertain her request to discuss a purchase, it left her breathless. A young, nervous-looking employee named Ethan had tried to intervene, a flicker of decency in the polished coldness of the showroom, but Langley had cut him off with a vicious glare. She'd seen a few customers turn away, embarrassed or indifferent. One woman had subtly filmed the interaction on her phone. Celeste took a deep, shaky breath, straightening her shoulders, forcing composure back into her frame. She had spoken clearly, her voice low but steady despite the guard tugging her towards the exit. "You will regret treating me this way." Langley had merely scoffed, a sound dripping with derision. "Regret? Honey, if you ever walk back in here with enough cash for a down payment, I'll personally wash your feet." The heavy door sealed her humiliation. Standing under the relentless Florida sun, the injustice felt like a physical weight. What just happened? Why was simple courtesy denied? And what, precisely, would make Victor Langley regret this moment? The questions hung unanswered in the oppressive heat. Celeste Monroe lived a life deliberately shielded from the ostentation her husband's success could easily afford. At 35, her warm smile and intelligent eyes hinted at a depth that casual observers, focused on her unassuming attire, often missed. She was the wife of Julian Harper, the 42-year-old founder and CEO of Harper Tech, a global technology giant headquartered in Miami that had revolutionized data security. Julian was brilliant, driven, and fiercely protective of their privacy. While they enjoyed the comforts wealth provided, a beautiful, modern home overlooking Biscayne Bay, access to exclusive events, Celeste dedicated her time and considerable intellect to managing the Harper Foundation, their philanthropic arm focused on underprivileged youth in South Florida. Her passion project was Haven House, a network of group homes providing support and opportunities for foster children and orphans. Celeste wasn't just a figurehead. She personally oversaw budgets, developed programs, and spent time with the children, her background in nonprofit management making her exceptionally effective. She preferred jeans and comfortable tops to designer labels, finding fulfillment in her work not in displaying wealth. Her desire for anonymity often meant navigating the world without the immediate deference the Harper name commanded, an experience she usually found grounding, though sometimes, like today, revealing. Julian adored Celeste's quiet strength and dedication. He was a self-made billionaire, having built Harper Tech from a garage startup into an industry leader. He understood the grit and intelligence beneath Celeste's gentle exterior. He valued her perspective, her connection to the community beyond their tech bubble, and her unwavering moral compass. While his world involved high-stakes negotiations and navigating complex corporate landscapes, her world involved nurturing potential and fighting for vulnerable children. They balanced each other, their private life a sanctuary from the demands of his public profile. The world of prestige motors represented a facet of Miami Celeste typically avoided: the conspicuous consumption, the emphasis on image over substance. It was known as the dealership for the city's elite, athletes, celebrities, old money families, and the newly minted tech millionaires flocking to South Florida. The showroom exuded an air of exclusive luxury, with gleaming marble floors, minimalist furniture, and cars that cost more than most people's homes. It operated on assumptions, judgments made in the blink of an eye based on watches, handbags, and perceived net worth. It was a world where salesmen like Victor Langley thrived, feeding off commissions fueled by ego and status. Celeste's visit wasn't for herself. Haven House desperately needed a reliable, larger vehicle to transport children to appointments, school events, and enrichment activities. Their old van was constantly breaking down. After researching safety ratings and practicality, Celeste had settled on a specific luxury SUV model known for its reliability and space. She decided to handle the purchase herself, wanting to assess the vehicle thoroughly and negotiate directly, using foundation funds allocated for this specific purpose. She saw no reason to announce her affiliation or arrive with fanfare. She was simply a customer intending to make a significant purchase for a charitable cause. She believed, perhaps naively, that a serious inquiry would be treated professionally, regardless of her attire. The underlying tension in Miami, the subtle and sometimes overt friction between established wealth, new money, different cultures, and racial lines, was something she was aware of, but she hadn't expected such blatant, dismissive prejudice in a supposedly high-end business transaction. She walked into Prestige Motors that day as Celeste Monroe, director of a children's foundation, looking to buy a car. She walked out reminded that to some, she would always be judged first by the color of her skin and the simplicity of her clothes. The incident didn't begin with the ejection. It began the moment Celeste stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Prestige Motors. The cool air, scented faintly with leather and air freshener, was a relief from the Miami heat. Several salesmen glanced up, their eyes sweeping over her casual attire. Comfortable jeans, a plain blue t-shirt, practical sneakers, her canvas tote, before dismissing her and returning to their conversations or computer screens. She felt the familiar, subtle shift in atmosphere, the slight cooling of attention that often happened when she wasn't dressed in a way that signaled wealth or status. Undeterred, she approached the large, pearl-white SUV she'd researched online. It was exactly what Haven House needed. She walked around it, admiring its features, checking the spacious interior through the window. That's when Victor Langley approached, his posture radiating impatience. He didn't offer a greeting, just crossed his arms, blocking her view slightly. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone suggesting she was an inconvenience. "Yes," Celeste replied politely, meeting his gaze directly. "I'm interested in this model. Could you tell me more about the current financing options and availability?" Victor's eyes did a slow, deliberate scan from her sneakers up to her face, a small, incredulous smile playing on his lips. Financing, he repeated, disbelief heavy in his voice. For this, he gestured vaguely at the $90,000 vehicle. Maybe you should start with something a bit more realistic. We have some pre-owned compacts in the back lot. Celeste kept her composure. Thank you, but I'm specifically interested in this SUV. I'd like to discuss purchasing it today, potentially. Victor laughed then, a short, barking sound that drew glances from others nearby. Purchasing? Today? Honey, let's be serious. Window shopping is fine, but don't waste my time. I work on commission. It was then Celeste felt the first real spark of anger beneath her calm exterior. I assure you, I am serious, she stated firmly. Could I please speak with someone who could discuss the contract? This assertion seemed to flip a switch in Victor. His dismissiveness curdled into active hostility. Look, he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially but loud enough for those nearby to overhear. I don't know what game you're playing, but people like you don't just walk in and buy a car like this. Go back to window shopping on your phone. He smirked. This isn't a photo op, sweetheart. It was at this point that Ethan Brooks, the young salesman who looked barely out of college, approached nervously. Mr. Langley, perhaps I could show the lady the spec sheet. Victor rounded on him. Stay out of this, Brooks. Can't you see she's just wasting time? He turned back to Celeste, his voice rising. All right, playtime's over. You need to leave. He signaled sharply to the uniformed security guard near the entrance. Frank, escort this woman out. She's bothering the customers. The escalation was dizzyingly fast, from dismissive prejudice to outright ejection. As the guard approached, Celeste felt a surge of humiliation mixed with defiant anger. This wasn't just rude, it was deeply discriminatory. Her initial goal had been simple: buy a car for the kids. Now, standing there being forcibly removed like a trespasser, a new resolve began to form. This wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about dignity, respect, and the blatant injustice she was experiencing. As she was being pulled towards the door, she issued her quiet warning. You will regret treating me this way. Her immediate reaction after the door slammed shut was a tumultuous mix of shock, fury, and a chilling clarity. She wouldn't just let this go. She got into her modest sedan parked down the street, her hands gripping the wheel, and called Julian. She recounted the entire event, her voice tight with emotion. Julian listened in silence, a silence she knew masked a gathering storm. Her first tentative plan formed. Julian would handle the immediate response, but she knew, with growing certainty, that she needed to understand why this happened and ensure it wouldn't happen again. Julian Harper arrived home earlier than usual, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a focused intensity Celeste recognized well. He held her, letting her recount the experience again, validating her anger and humiliation without judgment. No one, he stated, his voice dangerously quiet, treats my wife that way. No one. His protective instincts were fully engaged, but beyond that, the incident offended his sense of fairness and mirrored biases he himself had faced early in his career. He didn't propose suing immediately or unleashing Harpertech's legal might blindly. His first move was strategic, personal, and designed for maximum impact on the individuals responsible. Tomorrow, he said, we're going back, and we're not taking your car. The next morning involved a quiet flurry of activity. Julia made a few calls. Celeste, feeling a renewed sense of purpose, chose her outfit carefully, not ostentatious, but a sharp, impeccably tailored red dress that radiated confidence, paired with elegant heels. It wasn't about flaunting wealth, but about reclaiming her presence, refusing to be defined by Victor Langley's narrow-minded assumptions. Meanwhile, Julian, who typically favored low-key transportation, had one of his company's security drivers bring around a vehicle rarely used for daily trips, a gleaming black Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a recent acquisition primarily for transporting visiting international executives. Its imposing presence was undeniable. As they prepared to leave, Celeste's mind was already working beyond the immediate confrontation. The sheer confidence of Victor's discrimination bothered her. It hadn't felt like a rogue employee having a bad day. It felt practiced, almost systemic. She remembered the nervous energy of the young salesman, Ethan Brooks. He had tried to help, however ineffectually. Could he be an ally? She also recalled the woman filming the incident. The video was likely already circulating online. Using her foundation contacts, Celeste discreetly searched social media and local forums for mentions of Prestige Motors. She quickly found the video, along with a handful of older comments and reviews hinting at similar experiences. Dismissive treatment, particularly towards women and people of color, and whispers of overly aggressive sales tactics bordering on deceptive. Nothing concrete, but enough to fuel her suspicion that Victor wasn't an isolated case. Julian had also been busy. One of his calls had been to his executive team. Harper Tech was, in fact, genuinely exploring options for upgrading its fleet of company cars for senior management, around 50 vehicles. Prestige Motors had been on the list of potential suppliers. Julian instructed his team to put that inquiry on hold, citing concerns about customer service standards. This wasn't just leverage. It was a direct, tangible consequence of their actions, a significant potential contract loss that would hit the dealership's bottom line hard. Their arrival at Prestige Motors in the Rolls-Royce caused an immediate stir. Valets scrambled, other customers paused, and inside the showroom, faces turned towards the entrance. Victor Langley, initially looking annoyed at the commotion disrupting his morning coffee, froze as Julian Harper, instantly recognizable from business journals and tech conferences, stepped out, followed by Celeste, looking radiant and composed. The color drained from Victor's face. He clearly recognized Celeste from the day before, the connection instantly made. The transformation, the context suddenly shifting from vagrant to billionaire's wife, left him momentarily speechless. Ethan Brooks, standing near the reception desk, watched with wide eyes, a mixture of shock and something akin to vindication on his face. The stage was set not just for an apology, but for uncovering whatever deeper issues lay beneath the surface of Prestige Motors' polished facade. Celeste felt a surge of resolve. This wasn't just about putting one man in his place. It was about pulling back the curtain. Julian didn't raise his voice. He walked calmly towards Victor Langley, Celeste at his side, her presence commanding in its own right. The showroom floor seemed to hold its breath. "Mr. Langley," Julian began, his tone level but edged with steel, "I believe you owe my wife an apology." Victor swallowed hard, stumbling over his words. Mr. Harper, sir, it's an honor. I didn't realize." She didn't say who she was. It was a misunderstanding. He wrung his hands, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated, replaced by sweating panic. She was dressed like a normal person? Celeste interjected quietly, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. Or dressed like someone you assumed didn't belong here because of the color of her skin? Victor flinched. "No, not at all. I assure you, Prestige Motors values all its customers." Just then, a woman with sharp features and an equally sharp suit hurried over, extending a hand towards Julian with a practiced, brittle smile. "Julian Harper, what an unexpected pleasure. I'm Olivia Crane, the the general manager. I'm so terribly sorry for any misunderstanding yesterday. Victor here was clearly out of line. We were just discussing his performance review this morning. She shot Victor a look that promised retribution later. Please allow us to make it up to you. Perhaps a private viewing of our latest models? Complimentary champagne. Julian ignored her outstretched hand. MS. Crane, he said coolly. Yesterday, my wife, Celeste Monroe, attempted to purchase an SUV from your dealership. She was treated with disrespect, racially profiled, and forcibly removed from the premises by your salesman, Mr. Langley. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Harper Tech was considering Prestige Motors for a fleet purchase of approximately 50 vehicles for our executive team. Consider that $5 million opportunity permanently withdrawn. The mention of the lost deal hit Olivia like a physical blow. Her smile froze, then vanished. 50. Mr. Harper, surely we can discuss this. Victor's actions were inexcusable. He will be dealt with severely, I assure you. But this is an isolated incident. Celeste watched Olivia closely. The speed of her arrival, the immediate throwing of Victor under the bus, the practiced smoothness, it felt too rehearsed. And when Olivia said, isolated incident, Celeste saw a flicker in Victor's eyes, a shared glance between him and Olivia that spoke volumes. It wasn't shock or betrayal. It looked more like panic that their system had been exposed by targeting the wrong person. In that instant, Celeste's suspicion crystallized into certainty. This wasn't just Victor's prejudice. Olivia was complicit, perhaps even directing it. This dealership wasn't just rude, it was rotten. This moment, the public confrontation, the revealed stakes, the manager's telling reaction, was the turning point. Celeste realized their goal had fundamentally shifted. It wasn't enough to get an apology or even get Victor fired. They needed to expose the entire operation. The humiliation she felt yesterday was now forged into cold determination. She leaned slightly towards Julian and whispered, "There's more going on here, Julian. Much more." He met her gaze, saw the conviction there, and nodded imperceptibly. They had crossed the Rubicon. There was no going back to simply accepting an apology. They were going to uncover the truth, whatever it took. Leaving Prestige Motors after the confrontation felt different. The initial sting of personal humiliation had been replaced by the cold resolve of a pending battle. Back in the quiet sanctuary of their home, Celeste and Julian strategized. Julian, accustomed to high-stakes corporate maneuvers, immediately tasked a trusted division within Harper Tech, his internal corporate security and forensic accounting teams, to launch a discreet but thorough investigation into Prestige Motors. Framing it as due diligence related to the now-canceled fleet deal provided perfect cover. If they treat customers this way, how do they handle their finances and obligations? Julian reasoned. Let's see what shakes loose. Celeste, meanwhile, focused on the human element. She couldn't shake the image of Ethan Brooks, the young salesman who had tried to intervene. He represented a potential crack in the dealership's facade. Using her foundation's resources, she managed to find Ethan's contact information through professional networking sites. She reached out cautiously, sending a simple message thanking him for his attempted kindness and asking if he might be willing to speak privately about his experiences at the dealership. To her relief, Ethan responded almost immediately, agreeing to meet off-site. They met at a quiet coffee shop far from the dealership. Ethan was nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder, but also visibly troubled. "What you experienced, Mrs. Harper," he began hesitantly. "It wasn't unusual." "Not the billionaire husband part," he added quickly, flushing slightly, "but the way Mr. Langley and MS. Crane treats certain customers. He explained the unspoken culture. Customers who didn't fit the wealthy stereotype, particularly minorities, were often subtly, or not so subtly, steered away, discouraged, or treated dismissively. It's like they don't want people asking too many questions, Ethan admitted. He then revealed his deeper suspicion. He believed the dealership was knowingly selling vehicles with undisclosed issues, minor cosmetic damage repaired off-record, questionable service histories, or cars acquired through dubious auction channels, often masking these flaws and pushing them onto less discerning or overly trusting wealthy clients. Discouraging customers perceived as potentially more meticulous or less wealthy might be a way to avoid scrutiny. Langley gets bonuses for moving certain units quickly, Ethan explained, and Olivia signs off on everything. I've seen paperwork that just looks wrong. Internal repair orders that don't match the final sales docs. He confessed he'd been too intimidated to say anything, fearing for his job, especially after Langley had threatened him for trying to help Celeste. Celeste listened intently, her experience now clicking into a larger, uglier pattern. It wasn't just prejudice for its own sake. It was prejudice used as a tool to facilitate fraud. She assured Ethan of her support and discretion, recognizing the risk he was taking. Emboldened by Celeste and Julian's backing, Ethan agreed to discreetly gather any evidence he could find, copies of suspicious invoices, internal emails, or anything documenting the deceptive practices and the targeting of specific customer profiles. While Julian's team dug into the official records and financial data, Celeste and Ethan focused on the internal workings. Celeste also started researching consumer protection laws in Florida, contacting advocacy groups, and understanding the legal avenues for addressing both discrimination and automotive fraud. The fight was becoming multifaceted, exposing personal prejudice, uncovering corporate malfeasance, and seeking justice not just for herself, but for potentially numerous other victims. The stakes felt higher now, involving potential criminal activity and significant financial repercussions for Prestige Motors, Victor, and Olivia. The investigation intensified on parallel tracks. Julian's Harper Tech team, leveraging sophisticated data analysis and financial forensics, quickly uncovered significant irregularities in Prestige Motors' books. They found evidence of systematic warranty fraud, billing manufacturers for repairs never performed or inflating costs, and questionable financing practices potentially misleading lenders and customers. They also flagged unusually high profit margins on certain used vehicle sales, suggesting undisclosed issues were being ignored or hidden. The evidence pointed towards a deliberate, ongoing scheme orchestrated by management. Ethan, meanwhile, proved to be a courageous, if anxious, ally. He discreetly photographed internal documents with his phone during quiet moments. Memos from Olivia Crane pressuring the sales team to meet aggressive targets on specific high-profit and likely problematic vehicles, repair invoices that clearly didn't align with sales disclosures, and even emails where Victor bragged about handling a customer who asked too many questions about a car's history. He transmitted these images securely to Celeste. The risk he was taking weighed heavily on him. Victor and Olivia, perhaps sensing the unseen pressure or alerted by inquiries from Julian's team, became increasingly paranoid and hostile, particularly towards junior staff like Ethan. He overheard them discussing shredding old files and making sure everyone stays loyal. Celeste, armed with the mounting evidence from both Julian's team and Ethan, decided on a bold move to solidify the case against Olivia Crane directly. Knowing Florida is a two-party consent state for recording conversations unless there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, she couldn't simply record a secret call. Instead, She arranged a formal meeting with Olivia at a neutral location, a private room at a respected law firm Julian used, ostensibly to discuss a potential resolution or settlement regarding her initial complaint. Julian was present, along with one of their attorneys acting as a mediator. The entire meeting was openly recorded with the stated purpose of ensuring accuracy for all parties. During the carefully guided conversation, Olivia, attempting to perform damage control and minimize corporate liability, made several critical admissions under the pressure of Julian's calm questioning and the presentation of some preliminary financial anomalies. While trying to blame rogue employees like Victor, she inadvertently confirmed her awareness of the high-pressure sales tactics, acknowledged the practice of managing customer inquiries to avoid complications, and admitted she trusted Victor's judgment in handling customers he deemed unlikely prospects. She didn't confess to fraud outright, but her carefully worded denials and admissions, when juxtaposed with the evidence Ethan provided and the financial data, painted a damning picture of willful negligence and complicity. With the recording, Ethan's documents, and the forensic accounting report, they had a powerful case. They knew merely presenting this to Prestige Motors owners or parent company might result in internal cleanup, but perhaps not full public accountability or systemic change. Celeste felt strongly that this needed sunlight. They made the decision to go public, coordinating a press conference to expose the dealership's practices fully. They prepared meticulously, organizing the evidence into a clear narrative. They alerted relevant authorities, the Florida Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection Division, and the Better Business Bureau, providing summaries of their findings beforehand. Ethan, understanding this would mean the end of his job at Prestige, but determined to do the right thing, agreed to speak publicly. The final days before the press conference were tense. Celeste and Julian faced the reality that this would thrust them into the media spotlight, something they usually avoided. Ethan worried about potential retaliation from Victor or Olivia. They were pushing against a system built on greed and prejudice, and the final confrontation loomed large. The press conference was held on the public sidewalk directly in front of Prestige Motors, ensuring maximum visibility. News vans jostled for position. Reporters held microphones aloft, and curious onlookers gathered. Inside the showroom, employees, including a pale-faced Olivia Crane and a visibly agitated Victor Langley, watched nervously through the large glass windows. Celeste stepped up to the podium first, composed and resolute. She recounted her experience clearly and calmly, not dwelling on the emotion, but on the facts of the discrimination she faced. "My experience," she stated, her voice amplified by the microphones, "was humiliating and unjust. But as we looked deeper, we discovered it was not an isolated incident, but symptomatic of a culture that prioritizes profit over ethical conduct and basic human dignity." She then played a carefully selected, legally obtained audio clip from the meeting with Olivia Crane, where Olivia acknowledged the practice of sidelining certain customers to avoid scrutiny. Gasps rippled through the assembled press. Julian Harper spoke next, outlining the findings of the Harper Tech investigation, the patterns of warranty fraud, the financial irregularities, the unusually high number of complaints found once they knew where to look. He presented summaries and charts, showing clear evidence of systemic issues. "This isn't just poor customer service," Julian stated firmly. "This points to deliberate deception affecting potentially hundreds of customers and defrauding manufacturers." The final speaker was Ethan Brooks. Looking nervous but determined, he stepped forward, holding up his phone displaying copies of the internal documents. "I worked there," he said, his voice gaining strength. "I saw how Mr. Langley and MS. Crane operated. I saw them dismiss customers based on appearance, and I saw irregularities in the paperwork for cars we sold. This is proof. He described specific instances, corroborating Celeste's and Julian's claims from an insider's perspective. Just as Victor Langley started shouting denials from inside the dealership, attracting cameras towards his furious face, several plainly dressed individuals approached him and Olivia Crane, investigators from the state attorney general's office, acting on the evidence provided earlier. The confrontation wasn't loud or violent, but the sight of the manager and star salesman being quietly but firmly escorted away for questioning provided a stunning, decisive end to the press conference. The fallout from the press conference and the subsequent state investigation was immediate and widespread. Prestige Motors became toxic overnight. The parent company swiftly fired Victor Langley and Olivia Crane and suspended several other managers pending investigation. Faced with mounting evidence of fraud, potential criminal charges against former management, civil lawsuits from customers, and devastating public relations damage, the dealership was forced into a major overhaul under threat of losing its franchise licenses. Victor Langley and Olivia Crane ultimately faced felony charges for fraud and potentially other financial crimes. While sentencing would take time, their careers in the automotive industry were unequivocally over. The Attorney General's office launched a broader probe into dealership practices statewide. Ethan Brooks, hailed by many as a whistleblower, accepted Julia Harper's offer of a full scholarship to pursue his business degree, along with a paid internship at Harper Tech, where his integrity was highly valued. The video of Celeste's initial ejection, now paired with the news of the expose, went viral again, sparking widespread conversations about consumer rights and racial bias in sales environments. Celeste, leveraging the momentum and her expertise, established the Monroe Drive Initiative under the Harper Foundation. Its mission was twofold: to provide financial literacy education and assistance for vulnerable individuals needing reliable transportation, and to partner with businesses committed to fair practices and diversity training. Prestige Motors, under new management and intense regulatory scrutiny, ironically became one of the first participants in Monroe Drive's corporate training program, seeking to rebuild its reputation. Months later, Celeste stood beside Julian at a Monroe Drive event, handing keys to a reliable, inspected used car purchased wholesale through ethical dealers to a single mother starting a new job. "They judged me by my clothes," Celeste murmured to Julian, watching the woman drive away with tears of joy. "But dignity isn't about what you wear or drive." Julian squeezed her hand. "You didn't just buy a car, Celeste. You drove change." She smiled, knowing the fight had been worth it, proving that demanding respect could, sometimes, reshape the road ahead for everyone.